Robert in Dallas writes to me, Paul, I know blanket recommendations are just that. But if you had to make a blanket recommendation on matching the Aspen speaker to the room size in order to minimize overexciting the room. Now there's an interesting concept, overexciting the room. Whew. Sounds like me in my teenage years. He's overexcited. What models would you recommend? Let's not go there. For 80, 300, 500, and 1,000 square feet. Assume a 9-foot ceiling in each room, or is the trope of too big speaker just that, a trope? Could you put a set of 30s in, say, a 300 square foot room and still get good sound, or would the resonances be too much no matter what kind of treatments you applied? You know, we get asked this question a lot, and let me answer you directly. Let's say you took a Aspen FR30, which is our big speaker, 4 woofers, an 8-inch planar or 10-inch planar mid-range and front and back tweeter. Would that be too much for the room? Well, in one sense, no. In one sense, whether it's the smaller FR5 or the bigger Aspen FR30, from a excitement standpoint, if you will, which, and by that he means not us getting excited, but the room getting too many frequencies, too much to, overdo the room. I think that's more of a common myth than reality. But here is, well, and let me expand on that just for a sec. Because when I say that, I'm thinking, okay, that's not going to make sense to a lot of people. Think of a loudspeaker as a generator of air pressure. That's what it's doing, right? You have tweeters and woofers that are moving and pressurizing the air. Whether you have 10 woofers or 1 woofer, whether you have 10 tweeters or 1 tweeter, if they're all playing at the same volume level, then the generator is either this size or this size, but the air pressure that it is making is going to be the same. So that generator sitting in a room is going to generate a certain sound pressure level at a certain frequency, and whether it's big or small really isn't going to make any difference from pressurizing the air in the room and the reflections and all of that you get from the room. So that, just think about it that way. It's not really going to make any difference. The real difference is going to be a practicality. I mean, if I have a big floor standing loudspeaker and I get too close to it as an optimum listening position, I'm going to get all kinds of problems. I'm going to be much better off with a smaller speaker when I sit closer to it. I'm going to be much better off visually with a pair of FR5s or 10s in that small room than I would an FR30. It's just not a practical solution. So, here's the thing with engineers. And one of the reasons that I work hard at trying to break out of that mold and trying to be on both sides of it. When you're speaking with an engineer, you have to be really careful. I do it all the time. I have to be very careful, because if I'm very specific, I need the answer to this, blah, blah, blah. Then what do I get back? Blah, 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 right? So should I use a JFET? Should I use a BJT? And the reason I'm asking is because I only have this much power supply and I only have this transistor that I can use. They're going to give me a specific, direct answer. I'm not going to get any broad things. Well, let's sit back and think about this. I just get a direct answer. That's just how engineers are. So you have to be very careful. And I try, when I read these questions, I try my best to interpret what it is you really want to know and not be too specific in it. And that's how all these questions and answers get generated, if that makes any sense. Here I am rambling and babbling again. But I want to be more general in my answers to that. So hopefully that helps. from a sound generating standpoint, the size of the speaker makes no difference versus the size of the room. In a practical sense, it makes a big difference. You don't necessarily want to sit in a 300 square foot room, 6 feet in front of a giant loudspeaker, because that's not going to be a good listening experience from a visual standpoint or from a just audio enjoyment standpoint. So I would fit the speaker to my personal tastes, how close I'm going to be to it, how it looks in the room, and what I hope to achieve. The FR30s are going to give you much fuller range than an FR5, though they're almost identical in their frequency response. So even that is a little misleading. But certainly an FR5 or a little bookshelf speaker, you wouldn't want it to try and power this room, because this room is way too big to have the little speaker do that, where an FR30 could. So got all that you're trying to juggle, and hope that makes some sense. Okay, thanks.